But I want to move on today because Councillor Shaun Cunniffe joins me on the line today, and he has been on to me over the weekend, and he's renewing calls for the Greenway from Athenry to Collooney. Shaun, good morning to you. Thanks for joining us today on the programme. If you do want to get in contact with us the way you can do so, 086 38 33 55 3. Shaun Cunniffe, good morning to you.
Yeah. Good morning. How are things, Keith?
Thanks for joining us today.
No, a pleasure.
You were talking to me over the weekend, and you said you had a very engaging afternoon on Thursday in Leinster House, and the Three Greenways campaign in Galway, Mayo and Sligo gave evidence in relation to the necessity of the creation of greenways from Athenry to Collooney and Sligo, 126 kilometres in all, to the Oireachtas committee. There's engagement, but who's going to make the decision? Who's going to do something?
Well, this is it, Keith. Well, we had a great opportunity to go through all the core facts as we know it in relation to the Western Rail Corridor. And, we've had all the very detailed reports, we've had all the necessary information, the analysis, etc. And they've all been unanimous in their conclusion that the case for any reinstatement of freight or passenger services on the disused rail corridor at the moment is weak and unsupportable. And this isn't just a marginal decision, it's overwhelming. The evidence is overwhelming, The reports just are so conclusive that you can't argue with them in relation to passenger.
But is there a willingness?
Freight,
Is there a willingness there from the current government to fund this? I mean, we've had reports after reports and more reports coming the way. But is there a willingness there to do this?
To fund a greenway?
To fund a greenway, a facility, because
absolutely.
They're concerned about the railway tracks. They're concerned about the infrastructure that would be used for a greenway that could stop growth in the region if the rail was put in.
Yeah, well, the first thing now, Irish Rail have clarified on a number of occasions, and again recently, that all the rail infrastructure that's there, the tracks, the rotten sleepers, every single thing will have to come out. That is all obsolete. And they've, and it'll be replaced with modern rail infrastructure if at some stage in the future, a railway is reinstated. And the further than that, they say that the presence or absence of this obsolete rail track would have no bearing on any future reinstatement decision. So it's not really a valid reason. And we came across that in the committee, that people were saying, "Oh God, we wouldn't like the tracks to come up." We're saying, but when we explained that, then they were saying, "Oh, right, okay." They'll make a decision on it in relation to the criteria for whether the criteria for a railway, and the main one is population, and that's the main one where it just falls down.
Have you looked at again? I'm not for or against. I've seen greenways. I see how they operate. I know how they operate. But have you considered what is the footfall going to be from Athenry to Collooney?
Yes, it's absolutely phenomenal, Keith. You see, Bord Fáilte now have done the economic impact studies of greenways, and they, for example, the Great Western Greenway, between Westport and Achill, 42 kilometres, which is exactly the same length as the Quiet Man section, as we call it, the Galway section of the potential Galway section of a greenway. It generates 40 million euros of business per annum, and it's generated 920 new full-time jobs. That was 2016 data. And speaking to Bord Fáilte, it's grown steadily since. So they have over 1,000 new jobs. And that's what we stand to gain between Athenry and Milltown. 1,000 new jobs. It's just a phenomenal. What happens is outdoor recreational tourism it's the biggest booming segment of tourism. Everybody wants to get out and about. They want to walk on these off-road tracks, and it is so popular, it's unbelievable. So you'd have thousands of people coming all the time on these greenways. You've seen it, Waterford Greenway. It has transformed not just Waterford, the region, and so there's no question about it. And it would bring this golden ingredient of footfall into local areas where nothing else can bring them in. And once you have footfall, you have a chance. You have business. You people stop. They stay overnight, they attend festivals, they get involved in local recreation activities, they cycle, they hire bikes, they guest houses, and they eat food. It's all, and it's big, and it's all cumulatively an awful lot of money and an awful lot of jobs. So what we're doing now at the moment, we are, Ernst & Young, that report that came out recently in 2020 or whatever, cost $500,000. Again, it said, for example, between Tuam and Claremorris, that section of the track where you would need 100 marks, say. The report would need to give 100 marks to see if it would be considered for investment, and it had 7. 7, because it's open countryside, Keith. There's nobody there. It's you can't put heavy rail tracks and railways through small open countryside and villages. And these reports have said this over and over again. So that's kind of been accepted now, I think, by the rail people, and they're saying, oh well, it's going to be freight now.
Can I go back to my opening question again, though? I mean, I'm just reading a comment that came in here because we were talking about the bypass earlier on. Keith, it's important to be honest with people. The ring road in Galway, if it does manage to secure planning permission, will be challenged in the court all the way to Brussels. We're at least 20 years away from its completion. Why do we have to wait long for all these other improvements, which could have an immediate effect on Galway's traffic? Properly segregated bus corridors, more buses everywhere, park and ride on every major route into the city, and active travel infrastructure. All of these will have an immediate effect on traffic. But we foolishly tie them all into a roads project that is years and years away.
Yeah.
So, like that. So we've got the problem. But go back to my first question: is how do you make this happen, Shaun Cunniffe?
Well, I'll tell you how we make it. We sit down with West on Track and the main lobbyists and the main politicians in our area, and you know them, and we have to say, listen, guys, we just have to make this work. We can't spurn 1,000 jobs. This infrastructure is obsolete. Every report is telling you this. And what we're saying, what we've always said is, it's just that it's not either or. It's what can we do now? What makes sense now, knowing what we know from the reports? It doesn't preclude anything in the future. It might make sense in the future to put in a railway. I'll tell you something, Keith. The more investment in a Greenway at the moment now, where you build up local communities who are devastated, Keith, and need investment, and they're getting nothing. And if they build up local communities, build up the schools, build up the GAA clubs, and get vibrant communities, you'll have a lot more people, you have a lot more chance of a railway then, you know. But at the moment, a rural Ireland, as you know, it's a dispersed population. It's emptying, going into growth centres for employment like Galway, etc., etc. And the one chance we have, Keith, the one chance we have to bring footfall, this golden ingredient in there with a Greenway, it's proved all over Ireland already. It's proved all over Europe. It does it. It's like a magic solution. And we are actually, without any evidence to support a railway, we're stopping a Greenway. So we can work it out, Keith. I have no doubt we can. But we just need to sit down and work it out. But it's thus heretofore, it has been quite intransigent. But where we are now, Keith, there's no more reports to be had. Everything has been said. Everything has been analysed to death. So every inch of that railway alignment, you know.
So if I was to ask you, what's your gut instinct? Will it or will it not happen?
It has to happen, Keith. And I'll tell you, we can't deny 1,000 people in Galway jobs. And the great news is they voted for it in Sligo. They're going to do this in Sligo. They're going to have, and strangely enough, it's 42 kilometres as well. They're working, they're positive, and they're doing this. And not only are they doing that, they're working with Cavan, and they're working with Leitrim, and they're working with Omagh, and they're going to go from Sligo up to Enniskillen. And Keith, and just one other amazing thing, if and when, and Bord Fáilte were telling us this, and John, you may know John Mulligan, that when Ireland has a all-Ireland Greenway, or long Greenways, that's when you get the real tourism. People want to come to visit local areas, they want to experience the local. Bord Fáilte are telling us, they came into the municipal authority when I was a councillor in Tuam and said, we did this in Mayo, it's a great success, will you please do it? But we couldn't get it over the line for various reasons. But Keith, if and when we have these long Greenways, it's already come from Dublin. If it hits Athenry, we have a spur to Tuam, and a spur to Tuam, Ballygloon, all the way up. That's when you get the international visitors, Keith. This is happening already in Mayo with very little international visitors. They're doing huge business. Same in Waterford. When the international people come, it'll be that, you know what Bord Fáilte describe it? They didn't put a quantity. They said the demand would be insatiable. You couldn't fulfill the demand for this thing in the modern world. People want outdoor recreational tourism. So we have to make it work, Keith. We can't not.
Okay.
It's just as simple as that, you know.
All right. Thank you.
I think there's goodwill there, you know.
Let's wait and see. But Shaun Cunniffe, thanks for debating it with us today on the programme.
Pleasure.
We'll see how
Thank you so much,
goes there. That's Councillor Shaun Cunniffe joining us there on the line. Now, a very good morning to you.